Yeah, I'm Michelle Warner, and I am a business strategist and designer.
Michelle, you used to be the type of person who ran businesses that raised capital, you built startups, you did all the traditional stuff, and then one day you decided, I'm not doing this anymore. Walk me through the turning point for you when you decided to leave all that behind and go out on your own and build this tiny, mighty business you run today.
I was living that very typical tech startup founder life, which means I was traveling 95% of the time and very extraordinarily burned out to the point of being like legitimately sick. And it was just, but more importantly, I got to the point of building the business where I thought I was at the tipping point of destroying everything that I had built over the last 5 years. And I don't think that's atypical for founders. A lot of time founders are good at the early ideas, the early mess. Then we got to the point where detailed HR manuals were required and we had a built out team, but it was still all hitting me. And I always point to the HR manuals because that's the most visceral in my memory, but it was growing up as a business. And I really had no interest and no desire to tackle those issues and those challenges. I liked the early stages, but I also did not like what the early stages of that fast growing of a company did to me. So I looked around and I said, how can I continue to experience those early stages without putting all the pressure on myself? And the answer was fixing everybody else's early stages and plateaus and bringing that experience to the table, but not actually continuing to ride the wave myself.
What year is this? Let's put this into context, because you put an HR manual today with everyone's good friend Chatty G, it's not a huge problem anymore. But put this into context.
Yeah, I laugh about it because it wasn't about the HR manual, right? It was just about leading a team of that size and those series of growing pains that I like solving the early growing pains. But that stage was about 2008 to 2013. And I left about 2013. I may have 1 year wrong there, so don't quote me. But that's about when that was.
Wow. So you were the founder of this company, and then did you burn it down? Did you close it? Did you sell?
No. We found somebody. They are still cruising. I'm so happy for them. I found my successor, and they are still doing well.
So you decided it's time to get out, and you were like, let's do another entrepreneurial run here, but let's make it a little smaller this time.
Make it a little smaller. So at the time, my clients were a lot of single women. We put affordable internet into homes that didn't have access to it. So it was a social impact startup as well. And over the process of meeting a lot of my end clients, I was seeing women who were at home, they were single, they were raising families on their own. And our hypothesis had been that if we get them internet, they will be able to apply for jobs. Because again, this is back in 2008. So Target and Walmart have just taken their applications online. This was hitting the job force a lot because people didn't have access then to apply for jobs. So we thought, let's get it in their homes. Then they don't have to go to a library. They don't have to figure all that out. Instead, what we discovered was that these women couldn't leave the home. They have family, they're single moms. They couldn't go work those jobs without a big burden. So I would go visit my clients and I would find that they were all starting online businesses. They were becoming VAs. They were figuring out, how can I use this thing to make money from my home, not how can I use it to access opportunities to make money outside the home. And I just silently watched this for 3 or 4 years. And again, I'm in the tech startup world. I'm not paying attention to this burgeoning kind of online community of people who are either marketing online or providing their services online in terms of education courses, all of that. But I'm just silently watching this thing grow. And I was like, that's really interesting. And I realized that I have both a very traditional business background and an entrepreneurial experience that I know how to meld really well into making businesses work. And I would look at these women and I thought, how courageous. You are just figure and stomp out because you have to, and you have no clue what you're doing. And I say that in the kindest terms possible. I just had so much respect for them. And I started looking around and I was like, I could make this easier on them. And then selfishly, that can be done in a model that I'm way more interested in at this point, of just me and an assistant here and there. And so it's turned into something much more than that at this point. But at the time, I was just looking at this market that to me felt new and burgeoning and seeing a spot where I could really help.
Isn't it fascinating that you give them the internet and they all kind of come to a similar conclusion? This is before the scale and maturity of social platforms and the community and the exchange of ideas in the way that we understand it today. Like when you were talking about 2008, I'm like, oh, right. Like the internet was still kind of like smartphones weren't really a thing yet. Like they might have existed. It was the Wild West of the internet in a lot of ways. And they all came to the same conclusion. And you watched this, like your vantage point. This is what I tell people all the time. I love this so much. Like when you see a problem in the world and go solve it, like you just watch this unfold for years and you were like, there's a market here. And in a really positive way, you're like, I could make this so much easier and help them. Like if I can install a couple of really simple entrepreneurial skill sets into them, they could go from just winging it to turning this thing into something that can be sustainable long term.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting to me to watch entrepreneurs. And I have so much respect for people who have no idea what they're doing on the business side of it and just take a stand, whether they're forced to, like some of these women were, because that was just their only choice. I think a lot of innovation comes from that over time. And this was just another example of that. Or people who just make that choice because they're good at something or they're forced into a market and they just don't know how to run the business. And yet they get it up and running. And I have so much respect for that. And then I want to make it easier for you. I want to even out the roller coasters because for whatever reason, like I can just close my eyes and know how a business model works. And so when I think about that and making the journey easier for people who had the courage to start for whatever reason they had to start, that lights me up.
I love that. So throughout all of this is in the early days, right? So this is still when around 2013, 14-ish when you exit. And you're doing this consulting work. How many versions of this offer did you put together before you were like, okay, like I've really landed on something that I feel like works really well here? I think there's like people kind of have this assumption that people put something together and it's perfect on the first try. And I don't think that's true at all.
I don't think that's true at all. I'll tell my own experience and then what I kind of share with clients now. For me, it took 4 or 5 years. And part of that was I was so freaking ill when it started. I was just like, I was burned out to the point of like real medical intervention was needed. And so I had limited capacity, right? And was really just in like, let's get something up and running, so that I can pay my bills. So my curve, I think, was longer than some folks because I was in that kind of recovery mode for a couple of years. And then I really started to look at things strategically. What I tell entrepreneurs now, one of the things I say in my business a lot is sequence over strategy. The order in which you do things is more important than what you actually do. And one of the most important times that is when you're first starting out. So like, you got to throw spaghetti against the wall for a year or two so that we have data to react to. Like the least successful entrepreneurs I see are the ones who try to get it perfect from day one because you're just never out there actually trying anything. So I really believe that it does take a little bit of time. And for me, it took, probably until like 2018 until I was like, okay, now we're a pathway that strategically makes sense. But between that, in those years, I cannot claim that I was looking for it the whole time at all. Most of the time I was just like, great, this is good enough for now. But I think it's also important to acknowledge, sometimes other things are happening in your life. And that's part of the benefits of entrepreneurship as well.
You don't have to go up and to the right forever.
Correct.
You can just maintain.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't, 100%. We don't have to be in grow into oblivion mode at all times. Like a business that supports your life and does all the things. Like I always joke that you don't have to be crazy to do this work, but it helps because like the crazy part of you is like always wanting to push. But also there's a part of it that's like, hey, if I could build this thing in a way that serves my life really well and I don't have to push, and I can actually go and spend more time with my family or I can go do whatever the hell I want. That's also an outcome. That's also like an option. And most people just choose work harder, work more, grow the thing bigger because we're all a little bit crazy, I think, to do this work. But I like that the fact that you chose to just let it be for a little bit.
I did choose that. And then I continue to choose that. I make very intentional decisions about my business. I take the summers off. I spend a lot of time with the question of what's enough.
How do you do that? Like realistically, like the mechanics of doing that. I've heard a couple of other friends and people I've interviewed on this show say similar things. And I always wonder the mechanics of that for capacity planning, financial planning, like in just life. Like, what is your process for that?
Yeah, so I do a lot of one-on-one work, and I time that up. Like a lot of that work is done over the course of 3 to 4 month engagements. And so I'll have a really hot enrollment period in like August and September, and another one in January, and some other people roll in between that. But come, end of March, I'm not taking anyone again until August. And this doesn't mean I literally take every second of my summer off, right? But my one-on-ones client board is going to be pretty clean. And is there going to be a one-off call occasionally because someone needs something? Of course. Am I going to hop on a podcast? Of course, like a little bit, but I put my own podcast on hold. So really we're at the point, I would say I'm averaging an hour of work per day at most over the summer. So it's not off, but I do manage the client load.
That's a little bit of crazy that you have to. You're just like, I did
a little
not
bit
work.
Crazy. Well, and I mean, you just can't turn off an entire business, or at least I haven't figured out how to turn the whole thing off. And I don't need to. Like, I'm very fine checking in on my email or hopping on a client call, again, if like something is happening. But the main drivers of my time are gone, and I just manage them into those 2 seasons. And again, like I'm just comfortable with my enough number. So if somebody shows up in June, I'm really comfortable saying, we can talk in August, or here are some names of people you might want to talk to. And, I'm lucky to be in that position. I certainly have not been in that position my whole business, but that has been something I've really driven to be. And I think that comes back from like, I was burned out. I was so sick. Like your priorities just change and you realize different things. Like I'm also single and live in a low cost of living location. Like we have to acknowledge the whole picture of this, right? So it's just a series of kind of life choices that I've made.
I was just thinking like designing your life in a way enables these things. You've done all the things that surround your life and or surround the business that are your life enable that. And it's like, yeah, you said like I live in a low cost of living area. Like if you lived on the 42nd floor of some super ding dong building in New York City, you'd be like, well, we should probably take on a few clients to pay this rent.
Exactly.
It'd be a different story.
Exactly.
I've learned a lot from you over the years, and our mutual friend Jay Akunzo calls you like the best marketer he knows. And like you're like nowhere on LinkedIn or any of like the traditional places. Yeah. And one of the things I've learned from you that has stuck with me and it rattles around my head all day, every day is like the concept of traffic marketing and relationship marketing and building a business around that. And Erica and I talk about this all the time, because I think it's one of the most powerful concepts in business. Once you realize like the game that you're playing, it changes everything. How did you acquire your first clients, and how did you kind of come to this conclusion and see and put this framework together? Because I think this is like one of the most powerful concepts in entrepreneurship, or at least solopreneurship in the services world that we're in.
Yeah, it goes back to my startup days. So I talked about my end-to-end clients being a lot of, ended up being a lot of single moms. But essentially what I was doing was I was selling low-cost internet services, and I had to partner with local governments and nonprofits. And from them, we would reach the end user. And so my whole background comes in heavy traffic marketing. By we mean content marketing, email lists, just everything that you traditionally think of as marketing. And when I got into that role and I had to sell my first things, I was living in Denver at the time, and I had to reach into local governments in Philly and in Boston and in DC and in every big city in the US. And if you have ever attempted to do that from another big city, they have no use for you, especially, and I'll just use Philly because they're a really great example. Like that's a very local dominated place, and they don't want to hear from an outsider. And so I really was in this situation where I had experience managing multiple 6-figure email lists and like heavy kind of traffic marketing. Nobody was going to sign up for my email list, and I couldn't sell anything at the beginning. It was a real struggle to figure out, how am I going to get these people to pay any attention to this woman from Denver? They are not giving me any time. So I had to really rethink how I was going to approach the entire marketing of that business, because it also wasn't B2B, right? It was like into these local governments to build partnerships to then reach our end users. And what I fell back on was I had gotten an MBA at the University of Chicago, and somehow I had ended up in a couple semesters of network science classes where they literally taught you the science of how networks worked. And I started thinking back to that, and I realized this concept of strong ties and weak ties and just thinking through like the relationships and how they're intentionally made instead of traditional networking of how do we happen to run into people. It's like, how can I set up a system to intentionally meet the people I need to meet? And at the time, I was fortunate because we had a lot of media buzz around my company, but again, no sales. So I could book any keynote I wanted in any kind of high profile conference that was related to the industry. But again, I couldn't make a sale. So what I started to do was I traded in those keynotes and instead I asked for panels. And I started reaching out to all these people that I needed to partner with who wouldn't give me the time of day. And I said, hey, I want you to share your story at these places. I want people to hear from you. Please come speak on my panel. And that just changed everything immediately, right? Because I'm not trying to get in as some quote unquote foreigner who doesn't know the city, doesn't know the this, the that. And instead I was extending and I was saying, I want everyone to hear from you. Please come to this. And they did. And I got them platforms. I got them to share their stories. Local governments and nonprofits don't feel heard. I got them heard in very loud ways. And then, as you can imagine, the trust was built and doors started to open really fast. And then as I just learned about that, I just started thinking about how do you build relationships in a really different way so that it can serve your business in a way that you're kind of engineering leads that act like referrals, even without having to sit around and wait for referrals. It's a little tweak to how you think about it, but just 99% of networking is who do I know? How can I make this work? When the first question should be, who should I know? And how can we go make that happen?
That is incredible and you see a lot of this stuff show up in the way that I think some people try to treat traffic marketing now, which is like, plenty of people host a podcast that's like a fake podcast, like a bait and switch. And they're like, oh, like, can you join my show to just like pitch you their stuff? So marketers, I think, will just ruin anything. But I love that conventional wisdom would say, don't give up the keynote.
Right.
I think that's the main thing.
Yeah.
Conventional wisdom would say like, no, keep the keynote. Like, there's so much authority comes from that. And so much like, that's the thing that everyone wants. And you were like, there's the value is in the people. The values in the relationships.
And that goes back to sequence over strategy and knowing what questions to ask in the right order, because then you're asking, what job do I need the keynote to do? I didn't need any more media. We were oversaturated on that. I needed sales. And so, on the surface, keynote is a no-brainer to hosting a panel. But in terms of the jobs I needed to be done at that moment, I needed leads. And so I was very happy to give up the keynotes. In the same way that I'm very happy to give up a ton of podcast interview requests that I get now, because podcast hosts can think in terms of traffic, which is just transactional, collect bodies, get through it, pitch your thing, or their relationship podcasts. Like, this is a relationship podcast. We are having a conversation and getting to know each other, and people who listen to it just experience this in a very different way than they're going to experience podcasts that have a little bit more of that transactional mentality. And that's what it comes down to, is just asking those first questions right in the right order and trusting that what job you need to be done in that moment.
Yeah, this comes back to a lot of like the checkbox marketing activities that most people do. Like, they're like, oh, we have a podcast, and that podcast is basically every other podcast you've ever heard about like B2B tech marketing or something. And it's just copy and paste the same guests, the same questions, the same, like, if you've heard this guest, you've heard them 1,000 times. It's the same stuff over and over again. And it's like, it's just, I mean, there's no motivation to listen whatsoever. And so I think all of this stuff, I mean, Erica and I have spent a lot of time trying to figure out how do we do relationship marketing right? And a lot of that is a lot of the stuff that we've learned from you. And it's interesting to hear the evolution of it. So how did you translate that to the consulting practice?
Yeah, another great question. What happened was, again, like the core of my consulting practice is like get you from a place of being stuck in your business to the next place. And over and over and over, what I found was that people were marketing wrong. And especially, we talked about the years that I was really building this business. In 2008, even in 2013, I contend up to 2019, this didn't matter so much in like kind of online solo entrepreneurial businesses. Because the internet was still growing, there wasn't as much noise. So you could market however you wanted to market and get away with it because it didn't matter. But as the market gets more saturated for all of us who are in solo businesses, what happens is it becomes more important that you market in the way that's in alignment with your business. So like there's nothing wrong with traffic marketing. It's just that some business models are in alignment with that and some business models are in alignment with relationship marketing. And if you're a solo business or a small business who is providing services, right? If you're a small service provider, you are in alignment with relationship marketing. But before 2019, you could follow all the content in traffic marketing and still get clients because attention spans weren't as bad as they are now because there just wasn't as much saturation. And starting in 2019, you started to see so much more what we would call noise in the market or inefficiency if you were marketing in the wrong way. And now up till today, like I would contend that you almost can't do traffic marketing. Like it's just that can't be the only thing you're doing because it just doesn't work at all. And so that evolution of time, as I was fixing businesses, to bring it back to your original question, I continually saw that the biggest mistake was that they were marketing in the wrong way. And so I started to really pull out this marketing work that I'd always been doing. And one day on a call with a client, named it relationship or traffic marketing. Probably have a better name for that, but I just went with it now for all these years, like whatever. All my names are terrible, but I started naming that and I just started saying it out loud because the other piece of this is traffic marketing is really easy to see. And so when we say, I'm going to start marketing, everybody's brain defaults to traffic. We never think about the whole world of relationship marketing because it goes on behind the scenes and you can't see it. And so I started to be the voice that talked about this a lot louder and did much more specific work fixing that because often we could fix a business just by fixing this, this marketing misalignment. And so that's when it started to get louder when I just saw the pattern over and over again. And so now I have these kind of two branches of my business where I still fix businesses, but also if you ever hear me talk, it's probably about marketing because I want nobody else is talking about relationship marketing. And I want service-based businesses to know that makes sense for them and that there are options over there that are not traffic marketing.
I just did some traffic marketing about this yesterday. I posted about the idea in we know some consultants that have thousands and thousands, 80, 90, 100,000 followers, and they struggle to make money. They have leads, but they're not the right kinds of leads, right? I think that's the real thing. And what we have found, and I think it aligns with what you're describing, which is you have this big number of people, but they're just anyone. It's like people who like dogs, people who like watching people's travel vlogs, and people who like people who are interested in fashion or whatever, like the random parasocial things that you put on the internet to grow an audience that big. That's usually where things fall apart. Now, there are a few, very few, I can think of one exception of a person, or like a couple people who have grown a following of a really tight a tight group of people. But for the most part, anyone who has a large following, they have no idea who's in it, or they are it gives them anxiety to try and rely on that. And so what we default to is selling access to the big number of people, and they start selling ads. And then I'm like, well, what business are you in? Are you an advertising platform, or are you ad inventory, or are you a consultant? And this is what leads to burnout.
Yeah, you've nailed it. And I want to acknowledge the exceptions because they do exist.
There's so few though.
That's exactly it.
Hard.
It's the needle in the haystack. And if you are somebody who has that kind of business, I would never want to bank on being the exception. Right. And so
it's a slog though.
Right.
You have to be so intentional and so focused for so long.
Yep. And then on the other side of it, I have a lot of sympathy for the people that you're talking about too, who have built these big audiences because that's what we're told to do. But you're right. Especially if you're selling higher end services, they are very, very uncommon that they are the buyers for that because it's scattered, or if they even are within your niche, they're going to be junior level folks who don't have access to budgets or who just haven't built their business to a point where they can afford it. And so you're in that space of more traffic products, right? Traffic marketing aligns with traffic products. Those are the numbers game stuff, the little more mass market. And if you're playing that game, then great, commit to that game. Don't be a consultant on top of it. But if you're playing the relationship game and you are a consultant, don't rely on traffic marketing because again, just the noise that gets inserted into your model is just mass inefficiency, which is going to, equal either a ton of your time wasted or a lot of cash left on the table.
I don't think people realize the volume game that they're getting themselves into when they try to launch a course or even a cohort or whatever. or even when they design their services to be like these short, small product, like project based, like really small things. Like I would suggest like your model is like these 3-month projects, and your life and your business and the way that you operate supports the volume that you need to make that work for you. I have seen so few people make that structure work. And it's like, I like get out of, I mean, even the volume that you need is probably really not that high.
No.
Like you don't need a ton of volume, but like people struggle because they try to traffic market their way into it. And it's like, save yourself all the hassle.
Exactly.
Like, just save yourself the hassle. Like you can re-engineer an engagement model that simplifies your life and your need to like manic post to LinkedIn every day or something.
Absolutely. And that's again where I have a lot of sympathy for folks, because there's this whole black hole. You know, I think about marketing on a continuum, you know, and on the left, I think like the left half is all relationship marketing. On the right half is all traffic marketing. The problem is the extreme of relationship marketing is a referral. So we know what that looks like on the extreme end of it. But then there's like this entire black hole of the rest of your relationship marketing options. But then traffic is well fit in because traffic is easy to see. It's easy to teach. Like all of our marketing information in the world is like traffic marketing. So I get where people default that way. And I also get, it's like I said, this stuff worked until 2019 and has even kind of worked since then. And so much of the education, so much of the history is still built on all that traffic stuff. So I get why people do it, but I want to be louder about the trade-offs that they're making, because every single day it starts working less as the market. And it's because the market's maturing. Like it's classic maturation curves. You know, the market's maturing, it's getting louder, and that just causes it to not work in ways that it worked when the market was wide open.
Well, you beat the rush to solopreneurship too. So like you have a vantage point that most people don't. Whereas, and myself included in this, like everybody who the post-COVID era who got laid off or whatever, decided, whether it was your choice or not, who went out on their own and started to try to build a business, they never saw the shift that you saw in 2019. Like, yes, they see the saturation. They know there's a lot of trying to do a similar thing, but I don't think the marketing part of it was very obvious to anybody, because it's the only thing you can see. So you see all these people doing marketing. You don't see the people building relationships. And like one of the things that stands out to me when I first met Erica, one of the first things that she told me, she was like, I do 5 networking calls a week. And she's like, I've been doing this for like well over a year now. She doesn't do that anymore, but like at the time she was like meeting as many people as she possibly could. Now I was like, no one's doing that. Like granted, she has a big following. She has like over 40,000 followers. That's great. But no one was also investing the time and relationships and people that she was. So now she can pick up the phone and call anybody. People will take her call because she actually has a real relationship with people. She knows so many people. She can DM anyone and ask for an introduction to a certain person if she wants, like things like that. And I was like, that stood out to me more than anything. And I don't think enough people want to do it, or they do it and they do it in like the transactional networking group way, which is like the worst, cringiest thing in the entire world, where it's speed business dating. And they're like, tell me what you do. Tell me all this stuff. Okay, great. And then everyone leaves with the same stupid thing. It's like, well, if I stumble upon anybody, I will keep you in mind. And you're like, yeah, you're never going to stumble upon anybody. This is the worst idea.
It's exhausting, you know, and there's 2 things. Like I'm an introvert. I despise networking. So I get it. And there's a couple of things that I would say there. Number 1, I will die on the hill that, you know how they say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Your business is the average of the quality of your network. And that is just becoming more and more true every day. I think I've been saying that for 6 years. Every day I'm going to go deeper on it and I'm double down even harder. But at the same time, I get it. Like it's hard to have a quality network. It takes time. And a lot of the time you get burned because your networking calls are totally worthless. Like I don't want to get on Zoom for 30 minutes either if I don't know who you are. Like it's just exhausting. But this is how I flip it. And this goes back again to kind of the networking science and understanding that and understanding who you're talking to and understanding the job that needs to be done. Like we also talked about, networking should be about meeting people who have access to your audience. It should be about meeting your clients directly, because that at the end of the day is the equivalent of cold calling. Like, you have to start from scratch every single time. And so you want to think through, like, who can you build relationships with that are going to multiply over time, meaning like they will continue to build and you'll continue to have access to your audiences. And you do that by, instead of just showing up at networking events and hope you run into someone, you can think through, in the same way you have a client profile, you have a connection profile, probably 2 to 3 of them, of the best people who quote unquote own your audiences. And they own them by meaning like they have a following of them, or they know a lot of people who fit that mold. And then when you understand who you're trying to meet, the same way when you understand who your client is, you can go out and find ways to meet them directly that don't involve going to all of these, terrible networking events. I use that word because I hate networking events. Or just accepting like you don't have to reach out to every random on LinkedIn and set up, a 15-minute call. You can be really discernible about who you're reaching out to and know before you going into it that this person has earned a spot or shows the ability or shows the profile that they could earn a spot in my network. And that's the other thing. I don't know if I've ever said this to you, but I'll say it to a lot of people. Like, we need to flip it from this person is in my network to this person has earned a spot in my network, because they fit a profile and they have shown signs of wanting to collaborate with you in win-win ways. And like, not everybody from your past fits that. And not everybody on your LinkedIn fits that. But if we ask those questions, then you're going to start putting the right 30, 40 people in your network, and you got time for them. You can maintain those relationships versus trying to do this transactional rapid fire. I'm going to talk to everybody and everything. And I agree with Erica's approach. By the way, sometimes the way you figure out who your connection avatars are by having a lot of conversations, but you don't want to do that permanently. You want to think through, like, who should these people be, and really take to heart who earns a spot in my network. And that's who you put time into. Because that's the other thing I hear from people, justifiably. I don't have time to do this. I'm like, okay, well, if you only had to
you probably should be an entrepreneur.
You probably should be an entrepreneur, but also like, we can probably pull this off with the right 10, 15 people. And if you're telling me like you can't maintain a relationship with 10, 15 people, yeah, then you probably shouldn't be an entrepreneur.
Well, what I think is interesting about Erica's approach was that she used posting to social media as a way to become like internet friends with people. And then you build a real offline relationship with them.
And I've done I'm not criticizing that piece of it. I have done big call, like I did 100 calls once as a market research thing. Like, I've been there. You just don't want that to be the permanent plan. And it wasn't.
Oh yeah, it's brutal. Plan. And she was like, yeah, it was exhausting, but like it made a huge difference.
You want to know in what direction it's going. Yeah.
Yeah, it made a huge difference. And like you're intentional. It's not like anyone who's like, can I pick your brain? You don't take, it's like, it's right. Not that. It's like there are people that you've built an online relationship with that you start to meet. So one of the things you're saying, which brings me back to like my first year in business, was when I went out on my own, I had no network. And I realized it like 6 months in, maybe not 6 months, it was like a few months in, I realized that I didn't have a network. Because when you are a W-2 employee, you just know the people you work with. And I was like, oh, like I need to figure out how to get out of this little bubble that I'm in, or like create a new bubble and make it bigger and put some people in it. And a lot of that was finding internet friends and getting on Zoom calls with people. But then I will tell you, the best thing I ever did was start this show. This is the best thing I ever did, because it gives you a reason to reach out to people that you wouldn't normally reach out to and build a relationship with them. Like, do I talk to every person I've ever had on the show every single day? Like, no, but every once in a while we'll exchange a DM or something. It's like, you know them now. Like, you actually know this person. I think the nature, and I agonized over the premise of this show for months, because I was like, how do I set up a show in a way that allows me to like build a relationship with people in a really intentional way? And it's like not just any other show. I'm still trying to figure out a lot of this stuff, and like, how do you apply it in other people's context? But I do think the point remains, which is you need a reason, you need a way to do that, because I had nothing. I mean, I had absolutely nothing.
Well, I love that you did this, and I have a lot of clients who do this, and it's a different version of me asking for those panels like I did early on, right? Because what you're doing is you're figuring out, how can I have a platform that gives me an excuse to reach out and not only build my first network, but then up the quality of it as I go along. Like we said, like if your business is going to be the average of the quality, how can you continue meeting people? And so I think having a podcast is one of the best ways to do that, because now once you know who your ideal connection avatars are, you start reaching out to people who fit those profiles who otherwise might ghost you or not have time if you just reach out and say hi. Now you can say, would you like to be on my podcast? This is what I offer. These are the other people who've been on it. And you have a really good chance of getting a yes. And now you have your foot in the door with that relationship. And then the other thing I would say for what you were just sharing is specificity goes a really long way in making relationships sticky, especially network and business ones. Meaning, I think that and this is really relationship versus traffic again. There is this feeling that, oh my gosh, to maintain a network, I have to reach out to these people every week or every 2 weeks, or they're going to forget about me. Well, that's true if you reach out and say like, hey, how's it going? Yeah, they're not going to remember that. But if you take an extra 3 seconds, and that's literally all it takes, to reach out with some specificity occasionally and maybe nod back to this conversation. So like, we'll use you and I for an example. If like, we're always going to remember each other, but if we didn't, if this was just a one-time thing, you could reach out to me in 2 months and point out one thing that I said on this show and tell me that that's been sticking in your brain. And I would remember that. That would solidify our relationship in my experience. Again, as I've now watched it for like 10 years with clients, that would solidify that relationship for like 9 months. You wouldn't have to reach out to me for another 9 months. Because in that moment, you were so specific. I was like, oh my gosh, like he remembers our interview. He remembers the specific, like he's had a takeaway. I'm going to remember that in a way that's very, very different than, hey, how are you? So one thing I always say, and this takes a little bit of muscle memory to build up, when I talk about stop, drop, and thank you. Like, again, I just said that out loud once instead of whatever the fire thing is. But when somebody crosses
I feel like the fire
mind,
one's the one you really need to remember.
Right. Well, I know, I'm going to stop, drop, and roll. There we go. Stop,
Okay.
drop, and roll. But I always say, like, if somebody crosses your mind who had an impact on you, and again, who you want to have in your network, like text them in that moment. And like, I always used to remember this, like I was walking the dog and someone would come to mind. I would just text them in that moment and be like, hey, I'm walking the dog and I just remembered this ridiculous experience we had together. Or I remembered this thing that you said to me and it's really hitting me as I think about this client problem. Like just say something when people come to mind. And, you know, selfishly, now you've solidified that relationship for like 9 to 12 months. You don't have to reach out to them again unless, you know, there's a reason to. And I think that that gets lost too. It's like, again, like just respecting and the quality of the relationship doesn't have to take a lot of time.
People have told me, they're like, oh, that's like so cringe, or that feels like I feel so cringe reaching out to people or doing this stuff. And I was like, it's because you don't, this is my belief, this is my opinion. But I think that people who feel cringe doing stuff like that don't believe in the messages that they're sending.
Correct.
Like they don't actually care. You weren't actually thinking about this person walking the dog, or you weren't actually, you're lying. Like
Yeah,
whatever the
you're
thing
in a
is, like you're trying to be
transactional
deceitful.
mindset.
Yeah, it's transactional. You're trying to deceive somebody or get something out of somebody, and it's not true to you. Like one of the things I always said was like, anytime someone subscribes to our newsletter or something like that, I always and I can find them on LinkedIn. I'll shoot them on LinkedIn and just like, hey, thanks so much for subscribing to the newsletter and supporting our work. It really means a lot. And the amount of conversations that starts is absurd.
Yeah.
Because it's really people like, oh, that's so cringy. Like I would never do that. Or like what? You just don't believe it. Like I'm genuinely thankful that this person subscribed to our newsletter. Like it means a lot to me. Like that people would support my work. Like you could do anything with your time on the internet, and the fact that you chose to spend it with us is crazy.
Yeah, to me that's it's another example of traffic versus relationship mindset, because I always pick on Old Navy in these moments, but like if Old Navy reached out to me on LinkedIn and was like, thank you for signing up to our email, that would be a little creepy because like I don't have an expectation of a relationship there. But when they're learning from you and like they're probably signing up for your newsletter because they heard of you from someone who really likes you, or they heard the podcast and had an hour-long experience listening to you talk, like there's impact there. There's a moment where, you know, they chose to act if you're looking for that quality over quantity. And so I think it's normal to reach out in that way. And again, like you said, if people find that cringe, I find the same thing. Like they are looking to ask for the thing that they want immediately. They're not, instead, like my mindset around my network is, again, these 50 people have earned a spot in it. And so if I happen to reach out to them, like I probably don't need anything from them in that moment. I just know that they're important people to the overall arc of my business. And so I respect the relationship. So when I think of them, I'm going to take the time to know who they are enough so that there's a chance I think of them. And then B, like be okay reaching out under no pretenses, but knowing that in 3 months I may have a favor to ask. And like, that's fine because the overall arc of the relationship has been respected. And that's just how human beings operate, is questions and favors. And yeah.
This isn't like some novel idea in a lot of ways. It's like, this is actually like, if you take the business context, take it out of business context, and it was just anyone else in your life, you'd be like, oh yeah, I text people because I thought about them walking the dog. I've caught up with this other person. Like, it's very normal human behavior. In the business context, people have convinced themselves that they're, for some reason, not willing to do certain things. Like, we always tell people, like, sell like a human, because why would you not?
Well, one of the biggest issues I have with my folks is getting them to ask for something then, because they get weird about that then too. Like they feel like we have to string along. Like, I don't know, like we have to have some like, share a best friends forever necklace before you can ask for something. And speaking of like selling like you're a human, I share this very real story. I'm looking out my window at my next door neighbors. I have these phenomenal neighbors. I moved in 3-4 years ago, and they're just very kind, and they have a ton going on. Like, it's husband and wife with like 3 or 4 teenagers. There's a lot going on, and I'm like single me. So I'm like a lot simpler. They always need favors from me. And like, they're good friends. Totally cool. Do I need to feed the cats? Do this? Like, there's just chaos in their life. They don't ask for favors that are inappropriate. It's like little things that I'm happy to do. I'm around all day. But then my friend, my neighbor, it was a couple years ago. So we were about 2 years into a 4-year neighborship. Is that a word, neighborship? Anyway, she needed to ask for something. And she's like, I feel so awkward asking this because you never ask us for a favor. And I was like, oh, I'm just like this contained being. Like, it doesn't occur. Like, my life is that I don't need them to move my garbage cans a ton or do a ton of things. But I realized I was actually kind of ruining the relationship with my neighbors that I valued a ton, because they were asking me for favors, but I never asked back. And you realize, like, actually, if you never ask for a favor or if you never do things, like, you're going to ruin the relationship, because again, that's how humans deepen, is by helping each other. Like, that's just who we are. And so that doesn't mean you ask for the world, but it does mean in a business context, we get really weird about asking for anything. Whereas in this like very real human to human, can you move my garbage cans? We're like gone for the day, or the garbage cans blew across the street. Would you go grab them? And I never asked the same. Like, they are now, they're now awkward. They feel awkward talking to me. Yeah. And because they feel like they've taken advantage of me in whatever way. And I just think that that's a really human example of like, let's stop being weird in business. Like, at the end of the day, it's just relationships. It's just it's all the same thing. Again, if you respect the relationship, if you come at it from a traffic transactional point, yeah, then it's going to be weird because you're going to be asking inappropriate things in proportion to the relationship. But if you actually value the relationships and think about who earns a spot in your network and act accordingly, then none of it's weird. It's just humans being humans.
What's the business equivalent of, can you feed my cat while I'm gone for the day?
I think, so this is my advice. I actually talk about this. What are small asks? What are medium asks? What are large asks? And a lot of time, the equivalent of the latest one was the trash cans got blown across the street. What is the business equivalent of that? It's not, can you read and edit my entire sales page and tell me if it's right? It's like, hey, I'm thinking about this headline or that headline. Which one's better? Like a really quick this or that in something that you need advice on. And thinking about those small moments, I try to use the thing, can they answer in 2 minutes or less?
Oh, I like that. And it's funny, the example you give. One of my good friends wrote a really, really great mini book on differentiation. And he was like, can you read it and tell me what you think? And it was like 5,000-6,000 words. And I was like, yeah, I'll definitely read it. And then like, I definitely didn't read it. I felt like such an asshole. And
now you're going to start ghosting your friend again. Like, you got to think proportionally, right? Because people will start to feel bad. I'll get that. People ask me the most common kind of connection word, like, oh, can you send me a client? Or do you know anybody who might need my work right now? And then I instantly feel horrible, because even if I really like the person and believe in their work, I probably don't know someone in that moment who needs their work. But if they ask for different things, like I want to help them. So instead, then I start hiding from them because I feel bad. I'm like, crap, who can I possibly figure out who needs to buy something from them right now? And then the relationship goes in the wrong direction because you've done something that like you probably felt bad for your friends. So you probably felt bad every time you talk to them because you're like, crap, I haven't gotten to that yet.
I told him, I don't let that stuff fester. I was like, hey, I didn't read this, and I'm really sorry that I didn't read it, but like it's a lot, and I didn't have the time to sit down and read this. Yeah. I did read it after he published it over like the course of a week, but I was real about it.
Yeah. Long story short, know what small, medium, and big asks are. And when you're first building the relationship, go for the small ones, and this or that is a really great way to do that.
I like that. We got like rabbit hole on traffic versus relationship marketing here, but I'm not mad about it. Okay, Michelle, looking back, what's something you would have done differently?
I mean, the easy answer is I would have gotten a little bit more specific and strategic early on. The truth is it wouldn't have worked. And so I actually don't have a lot of regrets. I look back and I understand every step I took at every moment, and not that they were perfect, but I understand why I did them at the time.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like to like redo something. It's like, because what is the whole thing? It's like, well, if I redid it, then I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, you would go down a different path. And so, yeah, I guess there are moments where I'm like, could have been more strategic, could have been a little more hustly. And I'm like, well, no, it wouldn't have turned out right.
I respect that. So what's next for you, Michelle? What's something you want to build, or what's something you want to do that you haven't done yet?
Speaking of being more strategic, that is a focus of mine right now, because the last couple of years there's been like a lot of moving. I brought my parents to my town, like entering into a little bit of a caregiver. So my personal life was a little bit more focused in the last 2 years, and now it's not. And I have an opportunity for I think the next 18-ish months to really double down on what is this business going to look like for, up to my retirement. Like I'm kind of looking at what's the next 10 years. You obviously can't predict that, but centering the business for, not that I'm going to work over the summer, but centering the business and really thinking through how can I position it for its next iteration, do my own work on my business. And that feels exciting because it's been a little bit on the back burner for a few years as I dealt with some other things.
While taking summers off. I like it.
Yeah.
We say that, we call that, you got to drink your own whiskey.
Exactly. I was saying like, the cobbler never has any shoes. I'm going to have to strap on some shoes and figure this out, or hire the equivalent of me to get me in shape. But it's exciting. There's been a list of like to-dos just around automation and better incorporating of AI and a million things like that. So it feels good to have the time to do that, while still maintaining the client load that I always do.
Love it. Michelle, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story with me and jamming with me today. This was a ton of fun. Yeah, this is a ton of fun. And I know more people feel seen on their own route because of it. So for that, thank you.
Well, thank you for highlighting different routes, because I think it's important.
What would be your last meal on earth?
Oh, God.
I could tell you were ready for this question.
Was I supposed to be ready for it? Because
I don't know.
I have absolutely no. You know what? I'm going to go with my Nona's family recipe pasta sauce from Italy. It's a cheesy example, but it's been passed through the family for forever and has a lot of connotations in that it takes like a whole day to make. So it just has a lot of memories in terms of when we've chosen to make it and how it fits into the family and all of that. So not only is it delicious, but it just plays a role in life. How's that?
What's the dish?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's the pasta sauce. So just any kind of
sauce.
pasta.
Oh, it's just
the sauce.
The sauce. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was like and then you can sauce the sauce anything you want.
Yeah. You can put it. I'm not like the thicker, the more sturdy the pasta, it's going to be better because it's a Northern Italian recipe. So you're probably not going to want to pair it with like angel hair or something. But listen, I'm not here to make your pasta decisions for you.
That's a good point. I like a good like a ziti for like a nice sauce like that. That'd be good. A rigatoni, maybe some pinwheels if you're feeling fun. Some bow ties.
Rigatoni's usually where I go. I'm not going to lie. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Okay. Perfect. I'm in. If you ever have to last meal it, give me a call.
Game on. We'll get you out here for it. Yeah.